Welcome to Washington America Show with international multimedia journalist, multidimensional, multifaceted artist and director of Human Rights Justice Council USA, Dr. Kashif Sohail.
The specific requirements for voter eligibility and registration vary by state. For example, some states ban convicted felons from voting. The Iowa caucuses are traditionally the first major electoral event of presidential primaries and caucuses. The modern nominating process of U.S. presidential elections consists of two major parts: a series of presidential primary elections and caucuses held in each state, and the presidential nominating conventions held by each political party. This process was never included in the Constitution and thus evolved over time by the political parties to clear the field of candidates.
The primary elections are run by state and local governments, while the caucuses are organized directly by the political parties. Some states hold only primary elections, some hold only caucuses, and others use a combination of both. These primaries and caucuses are staggered generally between January and June before the federal election, with Iowa and New Hampshire traditionally holding the first presidential state caucus and primary, respectively.
Like the general election, presidential caucuses or primaries are indirect elections. The major political parties officially vote for their presidential candidate at their respective nominating conventions, usually all held in the summer before the federal election. Depending on each state's law and state's political party rules, when voters cast ballots for a candidate in a presidential caucus or primary, they may be voting to award delegates bound to vote for a candidate at the presidential nominating conventions, or they may simply be expressing an opinion that the state party is not bound to follow in selecting delegates to their respective national convention.
Unlike the general election, voters in the U.S. territories can also elect delegates to the national conventions. Furthermore, each political party can determine how many delegates to allocate to each state and territory. Along with delegates chosen during primaries and caucuses, state and U.S. territory delegations to both the Democratic and Republican Party conventions also include unpledged delegates who have a vote. For Republicans, they consist of the three top party officials from each state and territory. Democrats have a more expansive group of unpledged delegates called superdelegates, who are party leaders and elected officials. Each party's presidential candidate also chooses a vice presidential nominee to run with him or her on the same ticket, and this choice is rubber-stamped by the convention. If no single candidate has secured a majority of delegates, including both pledged and unpledged, then a brokered convention results. All pledged delegates are then released and can switch their allegiance to a different candidate. Thereafter, the nomination is decided through a process of alternating political horse trading, and additional rounds of re-votes. The conventions have historically been held inside convention centers, but since the late 20th century both the Democratic and Republican parties have favored sports arenas and dome stadiums to accommodate the increasing attendance. Under the United States Constitution, the manner of choosing electors for the Electoral College is determined by each state's legislature. Although each state designates electors by popular vote, other methods are allowed. For instance, instead of having a popular vote, a number of states use to select presidential electors by a direct vote of the state legislature itself. However, federal law does specify that all electors must be selected on the same day, which is the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November, for example a Tuesday no earlier than November 2nd and no later than November 8th.
Today, the states and the District of Columbia each conduct their own popular elections on election day to help determine their respective slate of electors. Generally, voters are required to vote on a ballot where they select the candidate of their choice. The presidential ballot is a vote for the electors of a candidate, meaning the voter is not voting for the candidate, but endorsing a slate of electors pledged to vote for a specific presidential and vice presidential candidate. Many voting ballots allow a voter to blanket vote for all candidates in a particular political party or to select individual candidates on a line-by-line voting system. Which candidates appear on the voting ticket is determined through a legal process known as ballot access. Usually, the size of the candidate's political party and the results of the major nomination conventions determine who is pre-listed on the presidential ballot. Thus, the presidential election ticket will not list every candidate running for president, but only those who have secured a major party nomination or whose size of their political party warrants having been formally listed. Laws allow other candidates pre-listed on a ticket, provided enough voters have endorsed that candidate, usually through a signature list. The final way to be elected for president is to have one's name written in at the time of election as a write-in candidate. This is used for candidates who did not fulfill the legal requirements to be pre-listed on the voting ticket. It is also used by voters to express a distaste for the listed candidates, by writing in an alternative candidate for presidents such as Mickey Mouse or comedian Stephen Colbert, whose application was voted down by the South Carolina Democratic Party. In any event, a write-in candidate has never won an election for President of the United States. Because U.S. territories are not represented in the Electoral College, U.S. citizens in those areas do not vote in the general election for president. Guam has held straw polls for president since the 1980 election to draw attention to this fact.
Most state laws establish a winner-take-all system, wherein the ticket that wins a plurality of votes wins all of that state's allocated electoral votes and thus has their slate of electors chosen to vote in the Electoral College. Maine and Nebraska do not use this method, instead of giving 2 electoral votes to the statewide winner and 1 electoral vote to the winner of each congressional district. Each state's winning slate of electors then meets at their respective state's capital on the first Monday after the second Wednesday in December to cast their electoral votes on separate ballots for president and vice president.
Although Electoral College members can vote for anyone under the U.S. Constitution, 32 states plus the District of Columbia have laws against faithless electors, those electors who do not cast their electoral votes for the person for whom they have pledged to vote. The Supreme Court ruled unanimously in the case of Ciafalo vs. Washington on July 6, 2020, that the Constitution does not prevent states from penalizing or replacing faithless electors. In early January, the total Electoral College vote count is opened by the sitting Vice President, acting in his capacity as President of the Senate, and read aloud to a joint session of the incoming Congress, which was elected at the same time as the President. If no candidate receives a majority of the electoral vote, at least 270, the President is determined by the rules outlined by the 12th Amendment.
If the President is not chosen by Inauguration Day, the Vice President-elect acts as President. If neither are chosen by then, Congress by law determines who shall act as President, pursuant to the 20th Amendment. Unless there are faithless electors, disputes, or other controversies, the events in December and January are largely a formality since the winner can be determined based on the state-by-state popular vote results. Between the general election and Inauguration Day, this apparent winner is referred to as the President-elect, unless it is a sitting president who has won re-election.
The typical periods of the presidential election process are as follows, with the dates corresponding to the 2020 general election. Fall 2018 to Spring 2019, candidates announce their intentions to run, and, if necessary, file their statement of candidacy with the Federal Election Commission. June 2019 to April 2020, primary and caucus debates. February 3 to June 16, 2020, primaries and caucuses. Late May to August 2020, nominating conventions, including those of the minor third parties. September and October 2020, presidential election debates. Tuesday, November 3, 2020, Election Day. Monday, December 14, 2020, electors cast their electoral votes. Wednesday, January 6, 2021, Congress counts and certifies the electoral votes. Wednesday, January 20, 2021, Inauguration Day.
Advances in technology and media have also affected presidential campaigns. The invention of the radio and then television gave way to reliance upon national political advertisements. Since the development of the Internet in the mid-90s, Internet activism has become an invaluable component of presidential campaigns, especially since 2000.
this video, subscribe to our channel.